I don't think I could do this anymore. I don't know why, but I'm okay with walking away from this because there's no way I'm dragging down the legacy. Wasn't that? The only thing that's ever been up my nose is my finger. I'm not doing this for the applause. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm not doing it for the fame. I've had enough of all of it.
Welcome to How to Fail, the podcast that firmly believes that while success is nice, it's really failure that helps you grow. Before we get into this conversation, please do remember to subscribe so that you never miss a single episode. In a world of exaggeration and bias, the word legendary is often overused. But my guest today lays genuine claim to the term. He is an American singer, songwriter, guitarist, actor, and philanthropist who, along with his band, sold more than 130 million albums and performed in over 50 countries for more than 40 million fans before being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Born and raised in New Jersey, he ran errands at his cousin's recording studio as a teenager and started playing in local clubs at the age of 16. An early hero was local rising star Bruce Springsteen, whom he now counts as a friend. The rock band he fronted was formed in 1983 and released a string of world-dominating hits, including You Give Love a Bad Name, Blaze of Glory, and Livin on a Prayer. He is, of course, Jon Bon Jovi.
Jon Bon Jovi. I like the English pronunciation.
Do you? You can have that for free. Sample it in one of your records. So far then, so rock and roll. But there is another side to his public success. As chairman of his own non-profit foundation since 2006, Jon Bon Jovi has focused on providing food and shelter to those in need. His Soul Kitchen encourages paying customers to make a suggested donation for their meal and to cover the cost for someone in need. After undergoing vocal cord surgery that could have left him unable to sing, Bon Jovi is back with the album Forever, Legendary Edition, featuring collaborations with Bruce Springsteen, Robbie Williams, Avril Lavigne, James Bay, and many more. The band's Forever tour will kick off next year with dates in America and Europe. But Jon Bon Jovi insists that he's not an applause junkie. I do it for the joy and I do it for the art, he says. The rest of it is great because I'm good at it, but if you couldn't do it from a place of joy, what's the motivation? Jon Bon Jovi, welcome to How to Fail.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good to be here.
I'm coming from a place of joy today, having you sitting opposite me. Thank you. Are you a believer in the fact that you are not what you do? You are something deeper entirely?
Oh, most definitely. It's not who I am. Performing, making records is what I do. It's not who I am. It's an aspect of it, but it's not the one and only aspect of it or who I am.
I'm intrigued that you started out running errands at your cousin's recording studio. What kind of errands?
A true gopher, a coffee boy. The guy that went for the burgers or the beers or the dry cleaning or whatever else anybody might need. I've gone as far as to have to go place bets on the horses. So, but I did. I met a second cousin who I barely knew. And thank goodness, he came to see my band, and he said to my dad, the band stink, but the kid's got something going for him. And he said, when you get out of high school, give me a call if there's anything I could ever do. And I just basically graduated high school, was playing original music, and said, what can I do? And he said, oh, you can run errands. And so I said, yeah, okay. So for $50 a week, it was free, and then it was $50 a week, I got to be around the studio.
What do you think it is about New Jersey that has had such a creative influence on so many artists?
It's a diverse roster when you think about Frank Sinatra to Frankie Valli to the Fugees to, of course, Bruce Springsteen to Southside Johnny. There and the younger generation that's come after all of us. But being in the shadow of New York City has something to do with it. Considering that my immigrant grandparents and great-grandparents didn't go much further than the New York Harbor. Yeah. They got off the boat and they were like, whoa, we're not going any further. We're staying right here. But growing up in the shadow of New York, that was a blessing, never a curse. You had New York media. You had access to theater, to concert venues, to radio stations that were going to be influential, to opportunity. And yet we grew up in the suburbs. I mean, New Jersey is so close to Manhattan. I mean, it's literally through a tunnel or a bridge, depending on how you want to look at it. But where I grew up was 35 minutes away. So that would be considered a London suburb, That's a different state altogether. I almost said a city, but we didn't have cities in New Jersey. We had your equivalent of a village.
So there's that sense of sort of wanting to get somewhere that lies just beyond the horizon, just beyond the tunnel?
Yes and no. It wasn't about wanting to go across the bridge because you got there, because in a weird way, you always felt like you were there. But what I do believe it gave us was a chance to cut your teeth out of the spotlight. You were somewhat in the shadow. You weren't asking to sneak into a club where, as I did at 16 and 17 years old, whereas in Manhattan, there was probably 40 other kinds of guys like you that were older that were trying to vie for those same 4 slots in the nightclub, if you understand that, right? So out in the suburbs of New Jersey, along these beach towns where there was bars next to bars next to bars, there was opportunity. And of course, because of those who paved the way prior, especially Bruce in the rock and roll era.
Is it true that you wrote Runaway at age 19 in a bus station?
Closer to 20.
Okay.
19, maybe closer to 20.
19 and a half.
Yeah, because it was definitely 1982. I was taking the bus to and from New Jersey from my parents' house. And you get out at the Greyhound station, and a lot of the young people my age were hanging around the Greyhound station. They didn't have opportunities like I had been given to walk that 20 blocks up to the studio and back down to the bus station at the end of the day.
Before we get onto your failures, I'd be doing our listeners and myself a disservice if I didn't ask you about Livin' on a Prayer and also tell you how much that song means to me and so many countless others. And I remember where I was when I first listened to it, and I remember the feeling of infectious, like freedom it gave me. It's had over 1 billion streams on Spotify. What is it? 2 billion?
Just in America.
Oh my gosh. What is that like? When you listen to that song now, what's that like for you?
Well, because it was an out-of-body experience, and I will defend my position. I'm one of 3 writers on it, okay? Me, Richie, and Des wrote it. And on the day that we walked into this very small room, not dissimilar from this little podcast studio we're in, it was teeny, with an acoustic guitar, an upright piano, and a notebook. None of us had any idea. No great title, no great lyric, no great riff. We were going to write a song together. Okay. When the song was finished, and the song was finished lyrically, the chords were what they were, the melodies were all set in stone. I personally thought, well, it's good. It's good. It's telling a boy-girl story. It's Shakespearean in that it's, boy meets girl, boy and girl will persevere if they work hard at it. And it didn't become the magic of what the song was until we went with the band and we developed that bass line. Now that I'm very cognizant of, because I was like, no, we need something that pops like Motown. We'd play some Motown stuff like that. Sugar pie, honey buns, and then we developed that line, with the octave. And I remember very hard working with me, Richie, Des, Bruce Fairburn, the producer, on what was to become that. And then the key change I fell for because I was young. No one in their right mind should be singing high C's, but I did. And that's when the song took on another life. And just to add insult to injury, it wasn't the first single on that album. And it wasn't the first single on that album because You Give Love a Bad Name sounded like it was going to be a radio-friendly hit song. Prayer didn't sound like anything by anybody anywhere. So I wasn't ready for it. I was surprised.
Before we get onto your failures, your mother was both a Marine and a Playboy bunny.
Correct.
I mean, she must be the only person in the world.
Perhaps, right? That'd be a short list.
That's so cool.
I know, it's pretty cool. And the older I got, the more I appreciated it, because she did say to me over the course of her life, boot camp was nothing to her. And I thought, wow. It wasn't until I was really much older that I realized what a tough life she had and how that she persevered and broke free of, childhood traumas to go on and make a life of her own.
You turned up to this podcast recording early. You're an extremely punctual man. Do you think there's an aspect of
Was
that?
I early?
Yeah.
I'll go out in the lobby.
Please don't. It just means I get extra time in your company.
Okay.
Do you think there's something, because your dad was a Marine too, that's when your parents met, isn't it?
It is.
Is there something about that military discipline that you've inherited?
Not necessarily. It wasn't a strict military upbringing at all. But I think that you learned about commitment, dedication, perseverance, in and of a long career and a long life at this point. I've had the highest highs and I've had some pretty darn low lows. So, punctuality is something that I admire, because if I'm waiting on somebody, I'm cranky about it too. It's like, I'm here. How come you're not? So, I don't know. I don't mind punctuality. You could be forgiven for traffic, but if it's just sheer laziness, and that's arrogance, and that's terrible.
You can be a rock and roll legend and be punctual.
What's wrong with that?
It's excellent.
If my tickets say we're on at 7:30, you best be in your seat.
Oh, my favorite kind of rock and roll star. Okay, let's get on to your failures. Your first failure is, and I alluded to it in the introduction, your vocal issues and almost losing your voice.
Yeah.
Tell us this story and when you first started realizing that there was something awry.
Well, in this latest chapter of the saga of this body, probably 2014. In 2013, I had a tumultuous time. I lost a band member who abruptly quit on us, the band, the crew, the fans. A couple business dealings that didn't go the way I'd hoped they would. And we overcame that. And I did 100 shows and persevered. In 2014, the body crashed out from under me and I wasn't even aware. But I know that when I walked by my guitar, not only didn't I touch it, but I gave it the middle finger. I wasn't at all interested in seeing my friend. And by 2015, when I was attempting to go back to work, maybe even a little bit, something just wasn't right. So this was odd for me. This wasn't just, okay, I'll beat the muscle back into shape. There was something wrong, but I couldn't figure it out. 2016, we put out a record called This House Is Not For Sale. It's very much a statement record. There's a chip on my shoulder. We work. But again, physically, I'm not quite right, and I don't know why. So the tour is very short. After that, as we're writing what was to become 2020, and then COVID happens, you're not thinking about touring because there's no such thing. And by 2022, when the world is opening up again, I'm thinking, okay, what's the big deal? Let's go. I'm past the difficulties of, This House Is Not For Sale. I'm past COVID like everyone else. I'm dying to get out in the world. I do what is to become a 15-show tour, and it's just not working anymore. And I don't understand it because, as in a cliched world, they say, well, what have you done? What excesses? It wasn't that. The only thing that's ever been up my nose is my finger. It wasn't working. And I willed it. And I tried very hard on a daily basis on a 15-show tour, which is practically, you don't even bring a change of socks for 15 shows. It's like, that's nothing. At the end of the 15th show, I remember going into that dressing room in Nashville, Tennessee, and saying to my wife, "It's pretty good." And she looked at me and she said, "It wasn't." People think, oh, what a blow. It really wasn't, because she's going to tell me the truth. That day, I remember thinking to myself, well, time for a drink. I don't think I could do this anymore. I don't know why, but I'm okay with walking away from this because there's no way I'm dragging down the legacy. And that began my journey to what got me here tonight, speaking with you, as I sought out a surgeon who explained to me that one of my vocal cords had literally atrophied. It was dying. and that he could do an implant surgery on the outside of the vocal cords to get them to close properly again, therefore simultaneously closing. And if I worked hard, he promised me nothing other than I would be better than I was that night in Nashville. Had I known that it was going to be a 3.5-year recovery, I very well might have said, thank you, good night. But the process and the progress was steady enough that I didn't lose faith. It was just nowhere near what I thought it would be in the recovery. And then because of this record and my putting it out a year plus ago, I thought it's a bitch to let this moment in time slip through my hands again with these last 3 albums. So we reimagined the record. And now, and only now, am I willing to go out on a limb and say, yep, I could play some shows because I feel fully recovered, or close enough to fully recovered that I have faith in the process.
Thank you so much for sharing that. When you say an implant, is that, what is that? Is that?
If you look closely here in the bottom of my throat,
yes,
there's a scar.
Okay.
That's where they cut you. It go right through the front. They put 2 pieces of Gore-Tex, which is plastic, outside of the vocal cords, but in the neck, that close the muscles together. Outside, every time you say a word, the muscles push the cords together. And they were not firing symmetrically.
And talk to me a little bit about the rehabilitation process, because although you started off by saying you are not what you do, your voice is so endemic to who anyone is and your means of expression with the outside world. And I'm imagining there was a period of time where you couldn't speak, you couldn't communicate.
It wasn't that extreme, and they told me it was going to be. But I did sound like the Godfather for a while. Hey, you come and see me on this TV. Even that next day, they said, oh, you're not going to be able to talk. And I was able to talk like that. You certainly couldn't sing, and there was no way you could sing like you sing. So the process was very slow. And then 6 weeks after the surgery, I could take speech pathology kind of courses, to work with a speech pathologist. Now, let me equate that. If when you're walking down the street and if you had a pebble in one of your shoes, at first when you said, ow, 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 then eventually you would compensate by leaning on the other leg and the other shoe till you got used to that pebble being in the first shoe and you compensate. Well, I had basically 7 or 8 years of compensation to unwind. So they had to start from scratch teaching me how to speak, then how to ultimately make sound that sounded like singing, and to get better and better throughout this process. And it's a constant evolution, but I'm confident enough now to know that, I can sell a ticket. I wasn't at all willing, a year ago.
Do you think that the way you sing or speak has changed?
I think it's more the way I used to sing and speak now. And they've been able to unwind 90% of the bad habits, and I'm working on the last 10.
And how hard was that journey for you?
Well, it's like knowing it. You didn't know you had a pebble in your shoe for so long until someone took it out. You wouldn't know you had a pebble in your shoe. So I didn't know how I was at the end of a sentence going down, and at the end of the sentence going down. I didn't realize that. And these glottal strokes in your vocal cords, and when and I would have to, I would like kind of wind up to a note to hit the pitch. I was starting to look like Joe Cocker in that 2022 tour, making the craziest faces and contorting my face, whittling the vocal cord to get to the note that I was trying to reach, and I didn't understand why I couldn't. I do a full-on stadium show 4 times a week now, 2 hours, 4 days a week now, prepping for next summer.
What did this whole experience teach you about resilience?
I've always been a pretty resilient guy, and I've always had a will. My wife had said in the film, which was nice for her to say, he would will it into existence. I would just go and just, plow through that field until I got to the other side. When I couldn't, because I physically couldn't, that was disheartening, but I didn't want to not do it. I'm not doing this for the applause. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm not doing it for the fame. I've had enough of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to feel that joy and the resonance. Even if it were only one last time. I don't think this is anywhere near a farewell tour or anything like that. But if it were, you can trust that these few shows that I've announced are going to be joy-filled. Because I this gratitude, humility, opportunity, to go out there and do it again is all heartfelt.
You were raised Catholic, and you mention faith, albeit in a different context in terms of your recovery. What does faith mean to you now?
Oh, a lot. Oh, it has a whole different meaning. The guilty Catholic upbringing in America had a difficult time with my relation to the organized Catholic Church the way it was in my youth and upbringing. And I was in and out of Catholic schools a couple of times in grammar school and in high school. So my relationship to it was distant. But as I got older, my relationship to God has only increased dramatically. And my belief in spiritual journey has deepened 100-fold. I still don't feel the need to go to church with everybody. It's Sunday at 10:30 in the morning kind of thing. But I'm there every day myself. You know what I mean? In my mind or in my heart. And on occasion when I go there to the building.
Has that informed your philanthropic activities?
Not necessarily. I think that came with travel, the world travel, with getting older, getting wiser, being a little more worldly, made me a little more in service. Going through what I did physically, which changed the course of my life mentally. All of those things led me more and more and more to service. These are very, very, very trying times in the world. The quicker and the louder we become aware of it, and you hear people like you or I or anyone else saying it, will give comfort and ease to those who don't have a microphone. Because everyone is going through some kind of anxiety now that we didn't have at a different time in our lives. Anxiety wasn't a word that I ever heard growing up. Wasn't a word I ever heard 20, 30, 40. No way. Not even at 50. But at 63, boy, do I hear it. Young kids, older kids, grown-ups, women, men, successful, non-successful. We all realize, this is a very trying time in the world.
You really care about people, don't you?
I hope so. More and more you should, because maybe it's the access that we have to a whole planet. And we see everything that goes on the way it does. Maybe it's this time in my own life. I don't know. But feeding somebody in a restaurant is no big, great lift. But I know it makes an impact.
The dignity of it.
Absolutely. And I don't need to be a scientist to find the cure. It's $1 that cost me for some food. Let's go.
There was a very moving story that I read about you in preparation for this interview about you interrupting the filming of a music video to talk to someone who was standing on the edge of a bridge, possibly about to take their own life. And you had a conversation with that person.
Yeah, people were walking right by this woman, and the lady that was standing, could imagine in this scene on the bridge, I'm shooting a music video, so they're like, everyone get out of the way, and there's only one PA who's basically holding a little speaker so I could hear timing for the music video. And the lady then said to me, "That girl's on the wrong side of the banister." So we went over to her on the side of the bridge, and I spoke to her and was able to convince her to come back onto the right side of the bridge. Yeah, I wouldn't have ever mentioned it to the world if the police hadn't released the film footage, because they had an observation kind of tower viewing the bridge.
Well, if you save one person's life, your own life is deeply meaningful. So your second failure is not saying no to grueling touring in the early years and the impact of that.
Yeah, I've come to terms with that because I've done it more than once. If anything, and you should learn from your mistakes. So I've burned the band out on more than one occasion, guilty as charged. In retrospect, had I really learned from the first time, which I claim to have done it, and then didn't realize when I did it the second time, that it was too much for some people to handle. I have to live with that. But the first time, I think it's because you're young, your nose is to the grindstone, you get to the absolute peak of success, and it's not anything other than, wow, was that fun? I got to do it again. So it burned us out. The real gift would have been had I learned from that mistake fully at that time. The second time I did it was another, oh my goodness gracious, 23 years later. And it was too much for some of the people in the band.
Was it too much for you? What does burnout look like?
I was having a really good time the second time. I just thought it was actually going swimmingly well. Physically, I was feeling incredible. We were having success. We were getting along. But everyone's journey's different, and I thought everything was peachy and it wasn't. So this I have to live with. And then you go on from there and, you come to realize you're going to continue to make mistakes. It's just how you deal with them on the other side. That you can admit it, face truths. It's not your story, it's the story. You're going to tell this story of tonight's interview differently than I will.
Yeah. What is a grueling tour for you?
Back in those days, it was 240 shows in a year. Back to back, another 240 shows a year later with a new album and 5 more top 10 singles. I don't care how young you are. That Superman tattoo is just a tattoo. It's not real.
Wow.
It was a lot. So, of course, it made sense that at the end of New Jersey, we were exhausted. But at the end of 2013, when Richie quit and, so I should have realized that was too much for some people.
What's the most challenging thing? As someone who is not a rock and roll star, who hasn't been on that kind of tour ever, what's the most challenging thing about being on tour? Is it the travel? Is it the come down?
Now, for some people, it's the not being able to travel. For some people, it's the quiet of home.
Huh.
That's not my issue.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
For some people more like me, it was, I hate the hotel room and the club sandwich and the grueling, schedule of the interview and the tour and the blah, blah, blah. For others, it was the quiet of being home. It depends on who you are. Was
it ever the performance for you personally? Was that a bit of a,
no. I never hated the performance, even if I, in the broken page of the book, when, in that 2022 tour, it was painful, but I wanted to be there. I was trying to break through to that other side. It was like trying to break through the stone wall to see light through the other side. I thought if I kept doing it, it would get better, because I had exhausted every other trick and I didn't have anyone else a doctor or somebody else to say, no, this ain't going to get better.
Does it always feel exciting when you are going? Does it not? When you're going on stage in front of thousands of people?
Jet lag or tedium, or you're cranky because your team lost. There's a human element. But you have to remember that the people that are in their seats, this is the night they've been waiting for. And so you have to do your very best to go out there and be your very best, even if you're not having a great day. Not that we ever faked it, but some days, your tummy hurts, what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going to be out there with a tummy ache. It's just what it is. So you do the best you can with what you have.
How do you feel about fame?
Fame is a liar and a thief. It would be easy and understandable for many a person to have fallen victim to it. And traditionally over the years, you've seen it, whether it's in movies or music or, people that get addicted to it. They find it to be alluring, but really it doesn't care who you are. It can break you. I was never drawn to any of this because of that. That wasn't why I wanted to do it.
If you'd had a choice to do what you do, but without the fame, without any recognition, but you could still do it, would you have chosen?
No. Let me be perfectly clear. I'm good at what I do on the stage, and we're very good at what we do on the stage. When I'm there, I love that resonance between me and the band, and me and the song, and me and the band and the song, and the audience. But it isn't about, look at me. It's not about, I'm ready for my close-up Mr. DeMille. No. I really do compartmentalize each and every aspect of it. But it's not an addictive thing for me.
I imagine that the grueling touring also had an impact on your family life. And one of the things that is wonderful about you is that you have this long marriage with Dorethea, who you met at school. Tell us the story of how you met.
She was sitting next to me in history class, and she was the girlfriend of one of my closest friends who had graduated and joined the Navy. And I never met her until we were in that history class and he was gone to the Navy. So this is, 6-8 months after he's joined, and I'm there in class, and I was like, oh yeah. And I just fell head over heels even then. We eventually, started to date, and he had moved on, if you will. And I never looked back. So my home life never suffered as a result of my success and my journey, but it also has been a great benefit to me in a number of ways of support, obviously, but also because we've been through the entire roller coaster ride together, that she knows the ups, the downs, the bullshit, and the Christmas days of it all. So there's no explaining it to her. There's no me wondering who is this person that's gotten on the ride of, and what's the motivator for her. So all of those things have been so helpful to me. Yeah, I'm the only guy that's been married to the same girl in the band. Past, present. John Shanks has been married to Colleen, and he's the producer of the band. But other than that, everybody's been married multiple times, and I've been blessed.
Why do you think it's worked? What advice would you give to someone embarking?
Mutual Admiration Society.
Okay.
It started there. Immense respect, always, just because I was in awe of her. She was more well-read than I was. She was more worldly than I was. I had a drive that no one else had. We complemented each other in that way. We weren't competitive in any of that. So it was a great partnership. And we weren't jealous of each other in any way.
And was she a great support when you were undergoing all of this rehabilitation?
Let me tell you, she deserves extra pay for psychiatry and psychology. And there was dark nights of emotions and anxieties that, again, wasn't about being out there. It was about recovering. It was the holy hell of it all. Yeah, it wasn't easy.
How do you think she'd describe you in 3 words? You can't say Jon Bon Jovi.
Yeah, right. Thank you. You did that for me. I don't know. You'd have to ask her. I really don't know. You'd have to ask her.
How would you describe her?
I once said, and I really loved that I said this, she is a complete sentence. She is a one-word complete sentence. Everything.
Oh.
Yeah.
You are now a father and a grandfather.
Yeah.
What has that taught you about yourself?
Well, I'll let you know more about the babies in time, because Jake and Millie adopted a beautiful baby girl 3 months ago. And Jesse and his wife, Jessie, are expecting a baby any minute now. So we'll have 2 of them for these holidays, but they're brand new. The chapter in the book of parenting for me is crazy because although we have 4 kids and we're blessed that they're all healthy, the difference between them being kids under our roof and them being 4 adults and how different yet the same they are is sort of like mind-blowing and expands, how you parent. And you have to learn that I'm not the boss of anything anymore, and I'm not even being cute about that. You're like, holy shit, what do you mean you have an opinion? But, you're not the boss of anything anymore. That comes with a whole different set of rules.
And what was it like when they were younger and you were on the road a lot?
They would come
Okay.
For periods in time. Like they'd come here. They'd always come to the UK because it was London. They'd go to Dublin. They're not going to be in Tokyo and they're not going to be in Iowa. But they would come to the couple glamorous places for a week's vacation somewhere. They were always very aware of who and what, Daddy was and what he did because they were born into it. And I think there was the blessing and the curse of being my kids. They didn't know who to judge as being real friends and whose mommy wanted to get to meet me. But it helped them too. Can't deny that it gave them opportunity.
I'd love to talk to you about your friendship with Bruce Springsteen and the moment that you felt he was a friend rather than someone who you looked up to from a distance.
That's a good question. I don't know. Let me think.
Is that him calling right now?
Yeah, no, spam risk.
Oh no! Even Jon Bon Jovi gets spam calls.
I do. From South River, New Jersey. Wow. When I was very young, Bruce jumped up on stage and in New Jersey. I mean, he's the king of all of the rock and roll bands that ever came out of there, right? And of course, someone I looked up to and loved his records and all that kind of good stuff. And the first time he jumped up on a stage with me was 1979. But we weren't buddies. I was singing one of his songs. I would say that through the 80s, I got a couple attaboys. By the late 90s, I was still persistent, so I got a little more of this and that. Early 2000s, we became friendly. But by the last decade or so, I consider him to be like a really dear friend, and that the two of us have been through a lot. And in truth, I mean, I could say things in that kind of company, and he could say things back to me that you can't talk to about with a lot of people. Being a boss, being a band leader, being a guy that people know, and you're going to say things publicly, or so you're out there. And he's still somebody I admire greatly. So I also hold him in that kind of esteem.
Have you seen the Bruce Springsteen movie with Jeremy Allen White?
I sat next to him in the two. He had a screening for family and friends. He said, "You're sitting next to me." Yeah, the crazy thing about the film, it's written about a period in 1982. That's the summer I write Runaway. If you've seen the film, for those who have seen it, on Sunday nights in Asbury Park in 1982, remember, this is after 4 albums. He's already Bruce, but it's pre-Born in the USA. So he's big, but he's not to the common guy, Bruce, yeah. Anyway, I'm a young kid. I just write Runaway. Sunday night is my night to play at the Fast Lane, which is the original band bar. The Stone Ponies were the cover bands played, jukebox music. He would go there every Sunday night. Well, imagine what that did to the audience of the original band bar. We went from 200 to 150 to 100 to 75 to 60 to we got to go on at like 7:30 or 8 o'clock because everybody's queuing at the cover band bar knowing that he's going to show up on that same Sunday night to play with the cover band.
Huh.
As I'm sitting in the movie theater with him, I say, "You see the crowd as your, fictional character is playing?" I'm in the crowd because my bar closed, because we would all jokingly go and know that you're going to play with the band. And then they're in the recording studio and they're working up the songs from Born in the USA. That is literally the room that I record Runaway in that summer.
Wow.
You know, those burgers and Cokes on the console would have been the Cokes and the burgers that I was fetching.
Huh.
You see, so
it must have been so moving.
well, as I'm sitting with it, you know, we're sitting in this movie theater. I go, "This is a time machine. That's what it's a time machine." And to be sitting here some 43 years later, you know, and of course his being him and me still being him, you know,
wow,
was cute.
And does Jeremy Allen White do a good job? Did you?
He does a very good job, you know, because this book that Bruce had given me a number of years ago, because he was impressed by the book. He was like, "Here, read this." You know, it's not like he would give me a book about him and go, "Read this book about me." But he's like, "Here, read this. I think you'll enjoy it." I couldn't put it down. And then, of course, he's been approached to have movies made about him time and time again. This was the way he wanted to tell his story, and not about the grandeur, but about the guy. And I think that Jeremy did a nice job of what the public-facing stuff was. Who knew about the Depression? Who knew about those other things? How could we? You know, we only knew him as that guy.
Will there ever be a Jon Bon Jovi movie?
You never say never, because it's not that, again, I'm not seeking it out. I've been approached a number of times, countless times. Who knows? Could there be? It depends on what the script would be.
Because you also had a very successful acting career.
I could play myself.
You could play yourself. But actually that brings us on to your third failure, which did make me laugh. Because alongside the successful acting career, you also had a chance to be a fashionista. And you say that your third failure is failing to be a fashionista.
Not for me. To this day, as I'm promoting a record and about to go back on the road, if a magazine that does all that fashion stuff and says wear these 10 suits and you could be in our magazine, the answer is absolutely not. No. But I do remember a cute story many years ago when Gianni Versace was still alive. And they did these crazy campaigns. And one was with Madonna playing poker with a bunch of dogs. And if you remember this, you know, it was a crazy campaign. It was right after she had done like a book with Herb Ritz and, you know, all these wonderful, you know, pictures of her and these nudes and stuff. And we're in South America and I'm playing these stadiums and Donatella Versace is down there. And I had, you know, got to know them a little bit over the course of the years and been invited to the odd fashion show, which I couldn't quite understand. And Bruce Weber, the famous photographer, is there. And I said, "You know those pictures with Madonna and the dogs?" And he says, "We want to take your picture. Come tomorrow." And I said, "Yeah, I want to do something crazy, good." And I got there and they said, "Here's his black jeans." Okay. Here's a black t-shirt. Okay. He goes, "Put them on." Okay. Now I'm waiting for something. He says, "Put your hands in your pockets." Click. There's the campaign. We're done.
You're like, where are the dogs playing poker?
Give me something. So the campaign comes out. Very nice pictures. Okay, Bruce, that was fun. So then Donatella comes to me again and she says, "Would you like to do it again?" This time with Richard Avedon, the very world famous Richard Avedon. And I say, "Yes, damn it. But I want something." So I go into Avedon's studio. Now I'm fully expecting black jeans and a black t-shirt. He says, "Take your clothes off." I'm like, sugar. I'm the one that told them I wanted something. Now I am standing there in the buff.
Okay.
And he says, "Wrap this blanket around your waist. Take the pictures." Now I am buck naked. They take the pictures, go away. In my 30s, I was pretty buffed. I look pretty good. Pictures come out great. Campaign goes out. I'm cool with it. I've learned my lesson. Shut up. Don't say things like this ever again. I run into Elton John. Elton's first comment to me was, "I have the outtakes."
Amazing.
Jesus Christ. Because you're buck naked with a blanket wrapped around you. He goes, "I have the outtakes." Son of a bitch. Only Elton can get away with that. And that was the end of it. I have no desire. I don't get fashion. I don't care for fashion. I don't want to know from fashion. I did love Gianni Versace. I wanted to do something like that with them, for them. But that was the end of it.
Would you say that you now have a uniform? So just start talking.
I call it the uniform.
Okay, so what is it?
these same dirty jeans that can walk to the laundry once a month, a black T-shirt, and a pair of white sneakers usually, which I've been chastised over. They call them dad sneakers now, which really bum me out, and a leather jacket. That is my uniform. All Saints T-shirts, frame jeans, these white shoes that used to be that golden goose, but now I'm too cheap to pay for them, and this leather jacket.
I feel like they would send you some, John. You can put it out there.
Maybe they might. They should.
Who was chastising you about the white shoes?
The kind of girls that get you clothes at photo sessions. They're like, those are dad sneakers. You can't wear them anymore.
Now, did I hear you say you wash your jeans once a month?
Yeah.
Okay, no, this is interesting because what the regularity with which one washes denim is a very personal thing, but also it has a real impact on the way you wear your clothes, I think. And I would err on the side of once a month too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I thought I was about to be chastised for that.
No.
Well, no, it's probably not once a month, but it's certainly once every 2 weeks for sure. If maybe, yeah.
I mean, if you're performing in them, maybe.
Not that, but, because you wash them, you dry them, they have a different fit.
Right.
Then they get broken in and they're just right until the point where they're a little too baggy and then they got to go. Or there's Cheetos being wiped on them one too many times.
When you look back at those sort of early forays into being a fashionista and you see those photos of yourself, how do you feel now looking back on them? How do you feel about aging?
Well, I'm fine with it. I'm not going to ever get work done and my hair is gray, and at least I still have all my hair. I haven't had any surgeries, operations, Botox injections, eye jobs or lip jobs or whatever the hell else you do these days. I'm not interested in any of that, nor would I do it. I had to come to terms with having gray hair, but when I was starting to get over that age and they would, put hair color in, I hated that. So I just said, screw it. Like 12, 13 years ago, I wouldn't do that. And so I had to come to terms with aging. I look at my pictures of me now. I'm not happy about it. I look at 30, 40, 50 and I go, yeah, I'd rather look like that, but I don't.
You look great.
Thanks.
You
but
do.
I'm
You always have.
63 years old,
Yeah. But, what do you think is the greatest gift that aging has given you?
Oh, wisdom. These next couple of years can be great if I'm physically right because of the wisdom. The roller coaster ride of getting punched in the face forces you to take stock in any and everything. And health, of course, is number one on the list. You can always make a buck. You can always write another song. But your health is the key to the universe.
This podcast is obviously all about failure and what we learn from it. But I wonder if I could finish by asking you, Jon Bon Jovi, what you now consider to be success.
It's not measured in terms of any numbers. Numbers don't mean it. They're not relevant. Relationships, family, legacy. I think, and not necessarily in that order. Family obviously would be first. Keeping my family sane and together would be number one. Friends are few and far between, so when you do have that 5 you can count on. I have a few more than 5 because I do count this band. And then the legacy, which is not only the music, but the kids and what they'll do and what they've learned. And then that ripple. That matters.
Jon Bon Jovi, thank you so much for coming on How to Fail.
I appreciate this. Thank you. It was fun.
Please do follow How to Fail to get new episodes as they land on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please tell all your friends. This is an Elizabeth Day and Sony Music Entertainment original podcast. Thank you so much for listening.